NERDSoul.
Why are you a black man in love? Welcome everybody once again to Black Together, a walk in her shoes. Thank you so much for joining us. I am Lady Lisa. I am joined by my sister cousin, partner in crime, Cletus to my Cleophas. Madam Buddaphlai, say what's up.
Peace, love, and light, everybody.
All right, so we actually last week started a new series called Be a Man About It. We finished up our series Black Girl Magic, but you can, of course, can still check that out. Links will be below. But we have started a new series, Be a Man About It. This is part 2, titled You're 18, Get Out. Putting Black boys out too early. So that is going to be our discussion today. But before we jump in, as always, we want to thank NERDSoul for allowing us to be on his platform. You can check out his many other videos on YouTube on ThatNERDSoul. You can also check him out on his website, ThatNERDSoul.com. If you wanted to check out his merchandise, you can go to shop.thatnerdsoul.com. He has a wide variety of videos on movie reviews, hip hop, you name it, pretty much it's up there if it has to do with Black geek culture. So please check him out. So let's get into this topic today. And what do we have in our shoebox to walk us through this today, Madam Buddaphlai?
We have a men's Timberland 6-inch premium pro endurance comp toe work boot because we are talking about putting Black boys out of the house as soon as they turn 18.
All right. So I think this is, as always, going to be a good one. So let's just first answer this question. Is there a general unspoken rule? For some it may be spoken, but is there a general unspoken rule that Black families have regarding putting out our children, specifically boys, but putting our children out of the house at age 18? Do you think that kind of unspoken rule exists?
Yes, I think it's more prevalent in well, I'll just say yes. I'll give the short answer, yes. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think so, yes, too. I think there's kind of more to it, but I think so, yes. Do you think it covers, our sons and daughters, or do you think it's more so our sons?
Our sons. I think there's definitely a double standard when it comes to what is considered adulthood and what behaviors are acceptable, between gender lines. An 18-year-old boy is expected to, work and get himself together to be self-sufficient, whereas a girl has more leeway in getting out of the house and being financially responsible for herself, generally speaking, of course. What are your thoughts?
I think that's true too. I'm really not, I don't know if anyone has ever been able to rationalize why there's that differentiation between that standard for boys and that non-standard for girls. I don't know if anyone's ever really been able to rationally explain that. Yeah. But why do you think that unspoken rule even exists? Why do you think we have that in our culture, that it's like, okay, you're 18, bye, go in the army, go to college, or get out and find a job? You're gonna do one of those three, because that's usually what I've heard. You're either going into the military,
Right.
you're going to college, or you're just going to get out and get a job in general.
Right. Um, well, first and foremost, I want to say that in recent history, I think that that narrative is perpetuated more by the mothers. Um, and I think it's a combination of things. I think that when you're talking about single mothers, a lot of them want to be free of the financial burden as quickly as possible.
Mhm.
And so, having that be the cutoff point, and there's other things involved with that because uh, they may be receiving child support payments for this particular child, and then once they turn 18, they no longer have that. Um, the tax credit, like there's all different things that could tie into 18 being a game changer. Um, but I think that that's something that is pressed upon more so from the mothers, just to uh, just to get the kids get the sons out of the house. And it's just it's sad and it's unfortunate. And um, you know we are nowhere near, and I know I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, but when you really think about the maturity level of an 18-year-old, um, they're just not, I don't care how well you prepare them for adulthood. I think that there is a huge learning curve that takes place um, when a child finishes high school to about 21, 22, somewhere in there, just in navigating the real world, because they don't really have access to the real world prior to that.
Yeah.
And so the idea of just putting a child out simply because they reach a certain age, it makes me think of being dropped off in a foreign country, that, a non-English speaking foreign country, where you have to figure out, okay, where am I going to live? How am I going to make money? How am I going to communicate? I don't know the currency. Like, it I just feel like it's abuse.
Mm.
I feel like it's abuse. And
Yeah.
I don't know if I addressed your original question or not, because there's just so much going on through my mind.
Yeah.
But go ahead. I'm
I'm
sorry.
sure, but I'm sure we're going to cover it. And I think, a lot of things we're going to talk about is going to kind of go in and out. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
But, I think that it comes from a place of, I think, tradition and thinking about what used to happen, and it comes from how kids used to be raised. I know kids used to have a lot more responsibility, like when our parents were being raised, when they were much, much younger, they always had responsibility. You know, I know for us, our parents grew up out in the country, so they had responsibility in terms of farming and tending animals and chopping wood and all these different things. And so from a very early age, they knew I have to work to help maintain the household. Everybody has to help maintain the household. So they're learning very early what it means and what it takes to maintain a house.
Hmm.
I don't know how much they learned in terms of the financial aspects. I don't know, but I know that they were learning about um, the responsibilities in terms of running a house, in terms of the work and the chores, and being consistent and being dependent upon for things to happen, which are all very important lessons. And so I think for a lot of people, the thought of that got carried on, but the things you needed to do in order for that to still be instilled
Right.
did not happen.
Right.
And so it's like you can't have one without the other. So I think that way of thinking just carried on, where it's like, oh, 18, you got to go. And I think that's something else that's drilled in terms of just American society. When you're
Right.
18, you're an adult. When you're 18,
Right.
you're an adult, you're an adult, you're an adult. And it's like, just because it's said that by law doesn't mean that um, emotionally, mentally, psychologically, you
Hmm.
are an adult.
Right.
Um, because things have changed so much. I mean, of course, I'm sure if you think back to maybe when um, I guess our great grandparents were living, they probably did or could, if they didn't, go out and run a household and be adults at 15 years old. No
Hmm.
question. That's
Right.
just how life was just very different
Right.
then. It was rougher. There was a period of time for African Americans that families did become broken because of what was going on in terms of the government and how they were trying to deal with us or not deal with us. And so that shifted our families in a way where there was disconnects and families were broken for a time. And that's kind of, side note, something I've learned a little bit in when I was kind of doing our family research, where, and I don't think that was just you know, relevant to just our family. I think that was something that was just happening. Families were being kind of broken, but
Right.
they were kind of forced to be able to survive at early ages, or it was just part of, again, how they lived.
Right.
So, I understand that being the reasoning, but you can't have that reasoning once again and not follow through with actually preparing these young people for that. You can't just tell a 18-year-old boy, oh, it's time for you to get out, and you have not prepared him in any way, shape, or form. He has not had
Right.
any type of responsibilities. He has not been required by you to keep a job, to take out the garbage on a consistent basis,
Right.
clean his room
Right.
on a consistent basis. You haven't talked to him about managing finances. He hasn't been put in a position to manage finances by giving him an allowance or saving his birthday money, whatever.
Right.
None of those things have been done or done in a consistent basis for him to understand this is how things work. You have to be consistent, because guess what? Those bills won't be consistent.
Right.
If you
That's
want
real.
those lights to be consistent, you have to pay the bill consistently.
Right.
So yeah.
That's true. Something that I was thinking about when you were talking is, in addition to um, the systemic things that were happening to break up our families, at the same time, they were removing trade programs from high schools.
Yeah.
So, early 70s and before that, you could finish high school and at the same time be certified or licensed as a beautician, a barber, a welder, an electrician, a carpenter, a plumber, all of these different things. You could basically leave high school prepared for entrepreneurship. And all of those programs were taken out of high schools. And so it left a huge gap, just as far as, the thinking remained the same, as you said before, but things, society changed, you know, and so it kind of just left young men without um, viable solutions for being able to sustain themselves in that type of environment.
Yeah. Um, we've kind of already answered this question. Is do we prepare our children to live successfully on their own?
Generally speaking, no, I don't think so. Well, I'll say this. I feel like there has been an awakening in the Black community as of late, in I'd say maybe the last 8+ years. Um, and you're starting to kind of see the building back up of Black families, and Black families being middle class, and people waiting to have children, and you know all of those different things. So I think things are improving, because all of those things are factors. But generally speaking, no, we don't talk to our children about money management. We don't talk to our children about investing. We typically don't have any a legacy to pass down to our children, a financial legacy, to give them a leg up. If they go to college, then a lot of times they are basically instantly forced into debt because we don't have college funds prepared to be able to send them off to college. Um, yeah, I mean, and then just basic life skills. When you really think about it, it's like it's about making sure that they have Jordans and name brand clothes and all of these different things. And, they don't have basic life skills. They don't know how to balance an account. They don't, know how to maintain a household. They're not forced to do any type of chores or have any type of responsibility um, that those are skills that they're going to need in order to, how can you maintain, as you said earlier, how can you maintain a place to stay if you don't know anything about money management? If you're not disciplined or regimented enough to save money to pay a bill, put it to the side, hold off on the instant gratification of purchasing something that you don't really need um, to take care of bills, those types of things. And no, I think, kids are very sheltered these days and have a sense of entitlement that, our generation really didn't get the luxury of having.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but I'm gonna be honest. Honestly, I think it kind of started with our generation, quite honestly. Um, of course, I think it got worse after us, but I think it really started with our generation because if you really think about it, our parents really are the first generation to kind of come up, if you will. I think there was this boom of Black families like moving out of the city, getting better jobs, um, better access, to jobs that have upward mobility. And then they find themselves able to provide better for their children. And the focus became, I want my kids to have better than what I had.
Mm-hmm.
And they focus on that. I want to give them clothes. I want to give them, access to, activities. And I want them to have the things I didn't have. And God bless them for it. It's nothing wrong at all with that. But I think the problem was that was so much the focus because they were, of course, thinking about what they didn't have and how they suffered and, that the hand me downs and just, doing without and all those things. And I know that that's what they dealt with. And, but I think in focusing on that, um, they didn't make sure that we had responsibilities, that we're talking about now. And, it's unfortunate because of course it's not done purposefully. And it's a matter of, them focusing so much, honestly, on their own trauma of
Right.
not having and saying, now we are in a position to allow our kids to have, and we're going to make sure they have everything.
Yeah.
Right. And so I really think that's kind of what happened.
A,
I really do.
a gross overcorrection.
Exactly. Um, yeah. And another thing that I actually want to go back and touch on is that it's not so cut and dry, I think, as us focusing on, okay, you're 18, get out. Because I do think what happens more so than that is that kids are allowed to stay at home. They do stay at home past 18, into 20s and beyond. Um, but they're made to feel guilty about being there, whether it's direct communication, indirect communication, just the whole vibe that's in the house. Um, you know, that whole thing. So I think that happens more than anything. It's that you're set up to feel uncomfortable, like you shouldn't be there. But
Mm.
it's like even in the middle of that, they're still not being sat down and said, look, this is what you need in order to be
Right.
able to leave. Let's talk about
Right.
finances. Let's talk about saving, bills, managing money, managing time, responsibilities, your needs versus your wants.
Yeah.
That still doesn't happen, but there's this attitude of you shouldn't be here because you're grown. Well, it's like, well, then what do you want them to do? They
Right.
they can't they can't pull knowledge from nowhere. Knowledge has
Right.
to come from somewhere and somebody, and it's
Right.
supposed to be coming from the parents. And again, it goes back to the attitude of, well, when I was young, I knew how to do X, Y, and Z. Well, how'd you know? Let's talk about how
Right.
you knew.
Right.
Did a
Because you
magic
had to do
fairy come down and whisper in your ear?
it.
No.
Yeah.
You it, and I think they get confused too, because it's like, well, my parents didn't have to sit me down and talk to me about it. No, because it was in action. You learned mostly because they like, go out there and cut that wood, and every
Right.
morning I need you to get up at 5 o'clock and go and get that water, or I need you to get up, every morning, go do X, Y, and Z. And so it was instilled in a different way. So I think when that way of living stopped existing, and parents, our generation or of our parents' generation moved on from that way of living, they
Mm.
didn't know how to translate that into that new way of living. That
Right.
now you have to teach your kids in a totally different way from where how you were taught. They didn't know, and so now it's become this domino effect where we have kids that just like, I mean, I don't know how to do anything. I don't know
Mm.
anything, and but we have to purposely sit down and teach them and talk to them about it. And this is kind of going on a tangent, but that becomes difficult too, because for those who recognize that a lot of us are going through our own financial stuff, we still trying to figure it out and get it together ourselves
Right.
because of the domino effect. So even if
Right.
we recognize that it needs to be taught and we want to, we still learning ourselves.
That's true.
A
Yeah.
lot of us are at that point where we're just now getting it about,
Yeah.
oh my God, I got to get my credit together. Oh my God, I got to get out of this debt. I need to
Yeah.
actually start managing this money and stop living paycheck to paycheck.
Right. That's
Yeah.
real. I can remember in sixth grade, um, and shout out to Mr. Jarvis if he's still alive because he was old back then, so who knows. But in Tacoma, Washington, Dover Elementary School, for anybody who's listening out in that area. Yeah, sixth grade was elementary school out there. But
Wow.
anyway, we had a checking account.
Mm,
And so, if we did well on a test or, there was various different things that would kind of give us this quote unquote money, that we would have in our account. And we had to keep like a ledger, like a
mhm,
like a checking account ledger. And so if we wanted, free time that was outside of like the regular recess, that type of thing, we could purchase, different things, being able to, play Battleship or whatever. And so we would, pay for those luxuries and we would have to keep a ledger. And that was how, that was my first lessons in money management, so to speak. And I carried that over with my children. I did kind of the same thing when they were much younger, just as far as being able to go out and do activities when I was homeschooling and stuff like that, doing different activities outside of the house. And them having, kind of that currency. And, compared to now where kids aren't even learning how to write in cursive anymore. You know what I mean? And so they don't even know how to sign a document unless they're taught by their parents at home because everything is geared around these SOLs, passing
mhm,
the SOLs. And so the few life skill things that were implemented in the classroom are having to be sacrificed for, this standardized testing. And I know that's kind of off on a tangent, but it's connected because if parents aren't preparing children and they have this expectation for the school system to give them this information, it's not happening there either, you
Yeah.
know? And so it's like, well, what, and we're not even going to go into how Black boys are disciplined at a higher rate, are placed in special education at a higher rate, are medicated for ADHD at a higher rate. Like we not even going into all of
That's
that.
literally, guys, another show. And when I say another show, I mean that literally this time. I'm not just saying as a whole. No, that's the show we have planned.
Yeah.
So we will indeed come on back around to that.
Yes. Yes. So it's just um I know that we have talked about this online. This woman that I knew who had had a son. And at the time that I knew her, her son was maybe 16, somewhere in there. And she was like so happy to count down, the years of him being 18 so that he could leave out of the house. And just in our conversations, because, she had every right to raise her child the way she wanted to. When people say things to me, I like to ask questions because I'm curious as to the thought process,
Mhm.
and just in talking to her, her son didn't know how to wash clothes, he didn't know how to cook for himself, none of this stuff. Now she's living with her mama and the son is staying there too, but she's anxious to put the son out and she hasn't taught him any life skills. And I'm just thinking, like, how could you take pleasure in that?
Right.
You're not even practicing what you preach because you're not living in your own place. You're living with your mama. So how are you gonna? How do you feel joyful in not only putting your child out at 18? He doesn't have any life skills. That's to your own admission. That's not me, trying to assess the situation. Out of her own mouth, she said things, was talking to me about the things that he didn't know how to do. And she's not on her own. So she has this expectation of him and she's not living it herself. It was just it was maddening to me.
Yeah. And I'm sure when she said he doesn't know how to do X, Y, and Z, she said it in a way like it's his fault and he's
Yeah,
fighting. Yeah.
girl, he don't know how to do blah blah blah. Yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
well, bam, who was he supposed to learn that from?
exactly.
Ew. Yeah. It's,
Exactly.
the mentality, we have to stop and really ask ourselves why we believe this, why we think this way, why we behave this way. And not to get too deep, but it is what it is. It goes back to the breakdown of our families and the systemic effort to break our families apart, to break our villages apart, right? Because that's what it comes down to. Because there was a time when it would have been completely normal in everyday life to have a grandmother and a mother and her son or other family members, a lot of other family members living in one household. And it
Right,
was no talk about anyone being trifling or anybody
right,
needing to go or anybody shouldn't be there. It was very normal for that to happen. Everyone stayed there, everyone contributed financially in taking care of the home, taking care of each other, taking care of each other's kids. That
yeah,
was village that just was for ethnic people,
right,
right? And so we've been programmed um, to succumb to European society where that's not the
mhm,
way they live and exist.
right.
And
It's true.
so we have to deprogram ourselves and
Hmm.
think back to and educate ourselves about what's natural for us as ethnic people.
Yeah. And what works in this particular society, because Asian communities, when they come to this country, or Latin communities, they will, um, take that village approach. Everybody living under one roof, pooling resources, and once they get to a certain point, when it's all said and done, they're owning businesses, they're owning
Yeah.
homes, they have real deal assets, and they maintain that structure until everybody is self-sufficient.
Yep.
For us, it's like, you know first of all, you need to get out. If you come back or if you stay too long, you're a burden.
Mhm.
Everybody is trying to maintain their own shenanigans and don't want to be questioned about anything. So you can't have too many people around, because then they're going to be in your business and you don't want your business out. You know what I mean? It's like there's so many different justifications, so to speak, that are given for why we steer away from the traditions that sustained us for centuries,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And of course, we can go back and say that it's systemic is how it happened. But once we recognize that it systemically happened to us, we can say, okay, but we can use whatever powers that we do have, whatever power we do have to change it, we can do that. So
Right.
we can't change the system all at once, or we can change how we operate in our own household. And once you
Right.
become a parent, or even if you're an auntie or uncle, whatever, and you see that that's kind of what's happening in that dynamic, you can be the difference and say, well, sit down and talk to whoever and say, well, why don't we do this a little differently? He may not be ready to leave. Have you
Yeah.
talked to him about finances, or sit down with him yourself as an auntie or uncle or whoever and say, well, baby, do you know how to manage money? Do you know what it is that you want to do? Whatever it is, you can step in and do whatever it is that you can to see if you can make that difference and fill in the gap, in terms of that, because it's going to take somebody doing that. That's really what it's going to take. So let's talk about this. How does this whole rule of you got to move out at 18 and everything we've talked about, how even if you aren't made to move out, the guilt that's put upon our boys for remaining there, um, or just the pressure, the stress, or whatever. How do you think that affects our sons in, the immediate effects, the long-term effects?
Well, I think first and foremost, you're in essence you're abandoning your child. That's the first thing. So everything that comes with having abandonment issues, um, is a possibility. Um, in addition to that, you know, it's 10 times harder to be self sustaining when you start from zero and you don't have support, And so, when you think about, okay, these boys, they're put out at 18, they're, working fast food or whatever job that they can get, entry level type jobs, to be able to maintain while the girls are at home. They may have the luxury of being able to go get a college education or, that type of thing. And it just creates a discrepancy in the family dynamic. So it doesn't just stop at him becoming self sustaining, it goes then into relationships where, whether they're married or not, cohabitation, and she's in a position where she's making more money than him and everything that goes along with that, and the dismissing of the importance of the black man, you know irrespective of the amount of money that they make.
Yeah.
So it's like it just continues to flow on. It just takes a longer time for them to just be able to maintain, not just financially, but like you said, the emotional immaturity, mental immaturity, all of those things have to kind of be either forced along, or they have a harder road while they're learning those lessons, just to kind of get on an even keel. You
Yeah.
know, what are your
Yeah.
thoughts on that?
You know, I think it's all of that, but also it puts them in a position of, the whole sink or swim. The whole concept of throwing a kid in the water and you will either sink or swim. But the
Yep.
problem is they ebb and flow from sinking and swimming, right? And so there's this constant struggle. You're setting your boys up to struggle for a longer period of time than really have to. So because
Hmm.
they go from trying to figure it out and making it work to something happens and then they're struggling again. And they're coming back and forth home. They're going to live with someone else, and then going back on their own. And it's this struggle, and it can go for years and years because in the meantime, they're destroying their credit. And a lot of people don't learn till later in life. Your credit is very important when you're trying to, I don't know, get an apartment, get a house, get a
Yep.
car, get
Hmm.
furniture, you know,
Yep.
all of these basic things. Um, and so you're just setting them up to struggle. And in essence, setting them up to fail in life because, you know, if you are consistently struggling, that falls to me on the line of failing, in terms of having a consistent um, uh, livelihood. And it's just it's unnecessary. It's To me, it's absolutely unnecessary. But it takes us changing our minds and sitting back and thinking about why is it this way? Why am I thinking this way? Why am I behaving this way? Where does this come from? And what can I do differently? Um, and we're going to get into that, but we're going to go ahead and take our break, um, and go into our segments, that we have. And our first segment is In Your Black Business, where uh, we try to promote and highlight a Black owned, Black run business. And who do we have to highlight this week, Madam Butterfly?
Well, today, it's going to be a little. It's a little nuanced. It's a little different here.
Okay.
This guy is like, he's amazing. He's a musician. He's a videographer. He's a filmmaker. His name is Islam Rap God. He's a producer. I mean, this guy, he he's the bee's knees. Okay. Um, the infusion of avant-garde hardcore lyrics over his vintage boom bap production creates the manna from heaven true hip-hop heads have been praying for. He has a new album, and his music is available at islamrapgod.com. That's islamrapgod.com. And like I said, he's an incredible, talented artist. Check out his music. Like I said, he's a filmmaker. So check him out, islamrapgod.com.
Awesome, awesome. So yeah, guys, check him out. It's important for us to support each other in business, and it's important for us to support uh, those that are in the arts, so that we can have control over our art.
Say that
Hopefully, we
again.
we need to have control over our art. Um,
Absolutely.
Hopefully, all of us are learning about the importance of that because we get hijacked all
Definitely.
the time
Definitely.
for our art and our culture in general.
Definitely. And just the messaging,
Mhm.
our when we are not in control of our art,
Yeah,
someone else gets to tell the story for us.
absolutely.
And when you listen to radio stations, and I think I've said this on a previous episode, when you listen to stations that are geared or marketed for Black people, it's death, destruction, drugs, hypersexuality, all of these different things. And, our children are listening to this. Our
Yeah.
children are being made to believe that materialism and being hypersexual is normal, that it's
Yeah.
okay. And it just creates a whole lot of extra problems in our communities. And we don't see that type of messaging on pop stations or
Right.
country stations or anything like that. So
Right.
it's important for us to support independent artists. And if you have a desire to be an independent artist, go out there and do it.
Yeah.
You know,
Now,
we
I
we
mean,
have to
at
control
this
the narrative.
time, yeah, at this time, with social media, the opportunity is there, because you don't have to, make a tape and try to run and see if your uncle knows somebody else's uncle who works at the radio station. You know, that whole thing, you could just go online, start a YouTube
Exactly.
channel and
Yeah.
share it with everybody and, harass your family and friends to listen to it.
Right.
So
Exactly.
yeah. So again, that is unwrapgod.com. All right. So now let's talk about New Day's Resolution, which is our segment where we just pretty much talk about changes and the small goals that you want to make, that you're focusing on day by day, versus this broader thing of, oh, I want to, lose 150 pounds by the end of the year. And it's like, oh my God, you just kind of look at it, you know, day by day to kind of make it easier and less stressful. So what are, once again, Madam Butterfly, what are your New Day's resolutions you've made and how are you doing with them?
So the main thing, well, the two main things that I've talked about are meditation and reading. And like I said last week, the reading has been challenging, just because of the amount of hours that I've been working in this new position. Um, but the meditation part has definitely been more what I've been leaning towards over the last couple of weeks. The chakra clearings, which I explained last week, and just trying to um, clear my energy and be calm, not let my anxiety get out of control, that type of thing. So that is what I am leaning towards right now. So hopefully soon things will start to calm down and I can get back to reading so that I can finish up this book and order the next one. And what about you? How's the curriculum going?
Whew. It's still going. I would say probably the last day or so, I've gotten a little sidetracked. I tend to get a little obsessed when I run into a challenge. And my
Mm-hmm.
challenge was I had brought bought new ink for my printer so that I could print off stuff, activities and everything. And the printer is just not cooperating. And so I'm trying to pull myself out of the obsession of figuring out what's wrong with it. Because I know that I do that. I can be very OCD with things. And so I need to move beyond that and just figure out how to work around it until I can fix it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's actually what I plan on doing today. I'm going to focus on what else I can do to continue to work on it because I'm getting there. It's just a very tedious and long process, but I'm definitely getting there. But I don't want too much time to pass by before I get him started. So I'm still working. I'm still getting there.
I'm excited for you. It's
I
going to
am
be so rewarding.
I'm very excited. I know he's going to be excited because he loves when he just learns anything new. He gets really, really excited. So yeah, it's going to be great. And just, to encourage anybody who's listening, you know, even if you hadn't up to this point, started a new goal or resolution. Again, we call this New Day's resolution. You can decide today, you know what? I've been meaning to do X, Y, and Z. Start today. No one says if you don't start on January 1st, you can't do it.
Right.
Start today. And if you mess up along the way, there's always a new day. You have to look at it that way. Don't say, well, I'll just start in 2022. No, there's a
Right.
lot of time between now and then. Every
Right.
day is a new opportunity to start again.
Hmm.
So, encouragement. Um, so for our last segment, footnotes, this is where we kind of touch on topics that have popped up in the news or in social media or what have you, that we wanted to mention and chat about just a bit outside of our, scheduled topic. So what do we have this week, Madam Butterfly?
Well, unfortunately, we've had the loss of some heavy hitters. Um, First is Diane Durham. She was the first Black national gymnastics champion. She passed away. Boxing legend Leon Spinks and member of the Supremes Mary Wilson. So we are sending out prayers to their families and pray that they transition well.
Right. Right. And do we have anything else that we wanted to touch on?
Yeah, so this
We have
whole
another RIP to somebody's hairline.
yes, this
And scalp.
whole Gorilla Glue debacle. um, I mean, if you have not heard about this, you must have been under the largest of rocks, because this was on basically every social media outlet. It started on TikTok, where this young lady, and her name escapes me at the moment, but a young lady uh, was talking about her experience where she was using a product that was like a gel type product. She ran out of it, and so she decided to use Gorilla Glue spray as a substitute. And so her hair became instantly matted to her skull. And so she talked about that experience. She demonstrated washing it and its immobility as she washed it. And she went through a series of things to have it removed. She went to the ER. Um, there was a video of some woman helping her by putting acetone on it. And someone started a GoFundMe for her. At last I checked, it was already at $8,000. And she was considering suing Gorilla Glue. And now she also has a talent agent. Um, so yeah,
A
that's
talent agent for what?
Gorilla Glue application. I don't really know. I really don't know. I mean, we know that she does that very well. So I don't know.
I'm gonna tell you, I saw a picture because I've seen different pictures, but one picture I saw, I think was earlier today, where she was, I guess in the ER at the doctor's office or whatever, and so she's kind of bent over, and I guess the nurse was looking at her hair, but the nurse's hand is on her chest, and I was like, I can only imagine, what she's thinking, like, because it's a white nurse, and this, unfortunately, brothers and sisters, this is the sister.
As if there were any confusion about that, the way that we affix things to our head on a regular basis.
Yeah, just um, you know, I really don't have a lot of words for this, and I'm torn about how I feel about the GoFundMe, because part of me is like, nobody should help her dumb behind with anything, but at the same time, it's done now, and she
Right.
does need. And I was going to say, and I would think she's learned her lesson, but the fact that she's considering suing Gorilla Glue is like, no, you haven't. You
Right.
haven't learned your lesson, because you want to blame them for having a product that I don't know works.
Whew, yeah.
And yeah, we just go.
Yeah, it's difficult for me because, I don't want to make fun of her. You know what I mean? I don't want to make light of her clear suffering. If
Right.
anybody saw the videos, she was, trying to hold back tears in part two of the TikTok, and then in the video where the lady is pouring acetone on her, she's clearly in pain. You know what I mean? Like, she can't even sit still. She's basically like writhing in pain. And so I certainly don't want to make light of everything that she's had to endure as a result of a very poor decision. Okay.
Mhm.
The poor decision, I mean, at the root of it, it is comical, for lack of a better word, because it's
Mhm.
just like, how in the world do you get from this point to that point? And I think whatever the product that she was thinking about had the word gorilla in it. I think it was like gorilla snot or something like that was the
Oh
product.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, yeah. I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, I've heard of that.
Yeah. So, perhaps that's where the confusion came in. Perhaps she just thought, well, I can just, because, sometimes, Black people are very creative. We start putting stuff together. We make a way out of no way sometimes with things. And maybe this was one of those situations that just kind of went awry. I don't really know. So,
Mhm.
like I said, I don't want to make light of her pain and suffering. And, I understand that she does need assistance in this particular situation. What's bothersome to me is that, we've had this long line of people who've been murdered by the police, who've been wrongly imprisoned, all of these different things. And where are the GoFundMe pages for these types of situations? Um, and I don't really like to do the whole whataboutisms, but you know, that's what first came to my mind when I
Mhm.
saw that there was a GoFundMe, because we see all the time when these police officers murder Black men, they end up with $1 million GoFundMe, whatever. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And they could, whether they get convicted or not, which in most cases not, they have all of this money that they can live off of, and it really doesn't matter whether they get rehired by another precinct or
Yeah.
not. This is the
Mhm.
way that um, certain groups band together to protect their own. And we have buying power. You know what I mean? We're the largest consumer group as Black people. So if we can throw away money to hair, to affix to our scalp,
Mhm.
and name brand clothes and shoes, then why can't we, support our people in these difficult times that aren't, I don't want to say trivial, because I don't want to minimize her experience. Um, but these kind of life altering situations that destroy families,
Yeah.
we need to have that same type of energy
Yeah.
towards them,
Yeah.
if Black Lives Matter.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. I see exactly what you're saying. So that is that. Um, we're just gonna leave that there. I'm sure there will be, more news. If you guys hadn't heard about it, you can research it, and hopefully we will eventually get to a place where she kind of, figures this thing out. Doctors can help her, or what have you. But I tell you what, Gorilla Glue, you better take advantage of the situation and somehow mark it and be like, if you didn't think it worked before, let me tell you,
Yeah,
Gorilla Glue works.
yeah.
And I actually, it's funny because we have Gorilla Glue that we've used for like, I don't know, wood and things that stays under the kitchen cabinet, far away from the cabinet where I keep my hair products. I
Oh,
love that.
goodness gracious.
Anywho,
Yeah, there's a
so
whole lot of people that can capitalize off of this situation. Hammers and chisels and
yeah,
drills, all kinds of things. Saw.
I'm just waiting for the borderline tasteless ads to come out on this one. I don't know how long they're going to wait. They may wait until everything works out for her. I don't
Yeah,
know, but you know what's coming. Somebody.
yeah,
But anyway.
yeah,
All
yeah.
right. So to get back to our topic at hand, talking about if we are putting our boys out of the house too early, saying they have to get out at 18.
Mhm.
So our final topic, our final question is, with everything that we've discussed, what can or should we do differently to better prepare our boys to go out on their own?
Well, first, first and foremost, you got to start young in having them around strong Black men, um, to help them to understand what manhood is from a man.
Yeah.
That's if, if the father is absent from the home. Because I think sometimes as mothers, we think that what we desire in a man is the same thing as what manhood is, and it's not.
Mhm.
So that's the first thing. Um, Teaching basic life skills, how to care for a house, how to manage money, how to be responsible, um, sacrifice, with abstaining from self gratification to take care of responsibilities, um, emotional maturity. Uh, I think that's a good starting point. You know, and preparing something financially for them so that when they go into the world, they're not going into the world empty-handed.
Yeah.
Whether you hold on to it or whether you give it to them straight out of the gate, they should be able to go into adulthood with something.
Yeah. I agree. I think everything that you do has to be really purposeful. Again, going back, we're not in a place where it just kind of naturally happens because of the way of life requires them to have responsibility, as in the days of old, if you will, where kids just automatically had responsibility because that was how you lived. Everybody had to do their part to take care of the home. It's not like
Mhm,
that anymore. So we have to
mhm,
make a very purposeful effort to say, okay, I'm going to create this instance that teaches them about financial responsibility or teaches them about how to take care of themselves in the home. So, we may have to set it up so that they do have an actual allowance. Whether you it's something you just give to them and say, hey, manage it, or it's something that they earn, or a combination of the two. Having just simply a piggy bank for your kids and saying, hey, your birthday money goes in here, or part of it goes in here, part of it goes to tithes, if that's what you believe in doing, tithes and offering, or giving to homeless. It's a million different things. It depends on your beliefs, but you have to be very purposeful in it and
mhm,
create that instance because it no longer just exists as it used to. I know for me, honestly, I need to, even with just a 3-year-old, I need to do better with allowing him to help me with things because I get in the mind of I just want it done. I just want it done. And he'll want to help, but it's taken too long. or I just want it done. And I have to step back and say, well, this is helping him learn how to do X, Y, and Z. So, I need to do better with that. And I can recognize that and admit that, because this is about teaching him, different skills that he needs to learn. He likes to help fold clothes, which isn't always very helpful. But, I understand it's part of him learning skills and different things like that. So we just have to make that effort. And I agree too, in terms of, we need to go beyond college savings. I know that's something that a lot of us have been drilled. College savings. And it's like, well, honestly, I don't believe that that's the priority. I think a savings that can go towards college or business ownership.
Right.
And in my opinion, even if your kid goes to college, they also need to have a trade, a skill, or a business. We've heard it, I think, more so in the last, I would say, 5 or 10 years than any other time, where we have a lot of young children and young teens who are opening their own businesses.
Yeah.
I think that's absolutely the way to go, because then they can have that, to go with them throughout their lives. So I think we need to teach our kids about that and let them know you're not too young to do this and you can do this. So yeah, starting them young and teaching them about finances and giving them responsibilities, and teaching them life skills on our own and not looking to school to do any of this. And I'll also go ahead and add on, I think we as Black folks need to, especially those of us who have young children, look into homeschool co-ops.
Indeed.
I really don't think it is to our benefit as a people to continue to depend on public schools to educate our children, and to care for and prepare our children, because they're not doing any of those things.
Right.
Our kids are having to recover from their experience in school. That may be a whole other thing, but it does, in my opinion, all tie together. So that's my 2 cents on that. Yeah.
Awesome.
So, anything else that you wanted to add to wrap this up, Buddaphlai?
Well, I had one other thought before we took the break, and we were talking about, you were talking about credit and the difficulty with, getting apartments and cars and stuff like that. The way that, capitalism has torqued things now, it's like you can still get things such as vehicles and loans and things like that with bad credit, but now you're paying, 100 times the interest rate. And so that's another way to basically have a pitfall where, you can get a loan, but you're paying 200% interest on it, 200% APR, which is robbery, but if you're functioning from a space of survival, you're not necessarily thinking about, things like credit and how it's going to affect you long term. So, the more that we can prepare our children to not have to rely on things like that, the better.
Absolutely. That's a really good point. And that's actually probably something we should dive into deeper on another show. But guys, that is it for us for this show. Again, this is the second episode. If you want to check out the first one, that link will be below. And if you also want to check out the series we just finished on Black Girl Magic, you can find that on ThatNERDSoul.com. So thank you for joining us as always. Please remember to subscribe, like, comment, and share. We appreciate all of you who continue to follow us and continue to comment. It's really, really appreciated. And thank you to NERDSoul once again for allowing us to be on his platform. Again, it is on YouTube, ThatNERDSoul.com. You can check out merchandise on shop.ThatNERDSoul.com. Thanks again, guys. Bye.
Peace, love, and light, everybody.